The kitchen.
Abstract wood carving wall art is more than just decoration. It's an expression, an emotional language carved into the natural surface of wood. It doesn't depict a specific scene or object. It doesn't tell a story the way a painting of a landscape might. Instead, it invites the viewer to feel, to interpret, to connect in a way that's entirely personal. Abstract wood carving wall art transforms ordinary wooden surfaces into windows of emotion and imagination. When you look at it, you're not just seeing wood. You're seeing movement. You're seeing texture. You're seeing the artist's soul, shaped and preserved in a flowing form. The power of abstract wood art lies in the freedom it offers, both for the artist and for the observer. Without the boundaries of realism, the artist can focus purely on form, depth, and rhythm. They can carve sweeping curves that flow like water, or sharp angles that erupt with energy. They can layer lines and grooves into patterns that seem almost mathematical, or let the knife wander freely across the grain in search of something completely intuitive. This kind of art doesn't ask you to understand it. It simply asks you to feel it. The wood itself becomes a partner in this artistic dance. No two pieces of wood are alike. Each plank, each panel, each slab brings with it its own grain, color, density, and story. A knot in the wood might become the center of a spiral. A crack might inspire a break in the design. The grain might be used to emphasize flow, or contrast with the cuts to create visual tension. The artist must learn to listen to the wood, not fight against it. The finished piece is not just the artist's vision. It's the product of a silent collaboration between the tool and the tree. Abstract wood carving wall art ranges from deeply carved reliefs that cast dramatic shadows to subtly etched designs that catch the light at just the right angle. Some pieces feel organic, mimicking natural forms like waves, roots, wind, or fire. Others are geometric, relying on repeating lines and shapes to build symmetry or rhythm. Some combine both, structured designs that suddenly break free into chaos, or chaotic lines that settle into balance. The process of creating this type of art is both physically and mentally intense. It begins with a vision, often vague and emotional. The artist may not even know what the final piece will look like. They may start with a mood, a feeling, or even just the sensation of movement. Then comes the choosing of the wood. Will it be a light-colored maple, a richly grained walnut, or a soft pine with gentle lines? Each species brings its own possibilities. Once the wood is selected, the artist may sketch a few ideas directly onto the surface, or they may begin carving with no marks at all, letting instinct guide the blade. Tools range from traditional chisels, gouges, and carving knives to modern rotary tools and lasers. But no matter the tool, the guiding principle is the same: reveal the beauty that already lies within the wood. It's not about covering up the wood, it's about enhancing it. Carving deep into the grain exposes the texture beneath the surface. It allows the play of light and shadow to create dimension. And when the carving is finished, many artists choose to leave parts of the wood bare and raw, as a reminder of the material's natural origin. Some abstract wood wall art is minimalist, one or two lines sweeping across a large, open surface. Others are dense, with layer upon layer of intricate detail. In some pieces, the carving itself is the star. In others, the interplay between carved and untouched areas becomes the focal point. Some artists stain or paint parts of the carving to highlight certain areas or create contrast. Others use natural finishes like oil or wax to deepen the wood's tone without hiding its grain. The beauty of abstract art is that it adapts to any space. In a modern home, a carved wooden panel with sleek, flowing lines can serve as a calming focal point. In a rustic cabin, a heavily textured piece made from reclaimed wood adds warmth and character. In an office or public space, abstract wall art can spark conversation or create an atmosphere of creativity and calm. Whether the piece is small and intimate or large and commanding, it becomes more than just a background, it becomes part of the room's personality. Abstract wood carving wall art also reflects a deep respect for craftsmanship. In a world filled with mass-produced items and digital distractions, a hand-carved artwork reminds us of the value of time, focus, and human touch. You can see where the tool moved. You can feel the depth of each cut. You know that someone spent hours, days, maybe even weeks working with patience and precision to create something completely original. There's no shortcut to that kind of beauty. Artists who work in this field often talk about getting lost in the process. They describe hours spent carving as meditative, like entering a trance. The rhythm of the tool against the wood, the changing resistance of the grain, the slow emergence of form, it all becomes a kind of language that exists beyond words. And the result of this quiet conversation is a work of art that speaks in its own silent voice. For viewers and collectors, This kind of art invites interpretation. One person might see movement in a carved wave that reminds them of the ocean. Another might see flames or leaves or emotions. Abstract wall art doesn't demand agreement. It offers space for your imagination to roam. Each glance might reveal something new. Over time, your relationship with the piece deepens. What once seemed simple becomes layered. What once felt quiet begins to speak louder. There's also a growing interest in sustainability and eco-conscious design, which makes wooden wall art even more appealing. Many artists use reclaimed wood, salvaged from old buildings, furniture, or even fallen trees. Instead of letting that wood go to waste, they turn it into something beautiful. This adds not just environmental value, but historical and emotional depth. The wood has lived a life before it became art. Its marks, dents, and imperfections become part of the story. Some pieces even incorporate slight burns, charring, or natural weathering to enhance the visual effect. A surface that's been exposed to fire or sun may carry textures that add contrast to smooth carvings. Other artists combine abstract carving with natural edges, letting the organic shape of the wood dictate the design. In this way, the boundary between natural object and human creation becomes beautifully blurred. The appeal of abstract wood carving wall art is universal. It fits in contemporary interiors, traditional settings, bohemian spaces, and minimalist homes. Its flexibility in form and message allows it to transcend styles. And because every piece is unique, shaped by the wood, the hand, and the moment, it offers something truly personal. No one else has the exact piece you do. No one else sees it quite the same way. That individuality is part of its magic. Ultimately, abstract carved wood wall art is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about emotion, intention, and exploration. Whether it's calm and flowing or bold and dynamic, whether it whispers or roars, it stands as a reminder of what can be made when creativity meets nature, and when vision is given space to grow.
The kitchen.
So next time you pass by a piece of abstract carved wood art, stop, not just for a second but for long enough to really see. Let your eyes wander over every curve, every ridge, every unexpected turn in the grain. This isn't the kind of art that gives up its meaning at a glance. It's not trying to be obvious. It's not trying to be explained. It's not even asking you to figure it out. What it asks for instead is your time, your openness, your willingness to feel rather than label. There's something magical about abstract forms in wood, something that draws you in slowly. At first you might see only lines and edges, shapes without names, movements without direction. But as you look longer, as you breathe with the piece, something starts to shift. The texture of the wood begins to speak. The negative spaces become just as important as the carved surfaces. And suddenly what once looked like a random design begins to take on meaning, not the artist's meaning necessarily, but yours. Because that's the power of abstract wood carving. It opens a door not into the artist's mind, but into your own. It invites your imagination to come forward, to participate. There is no right or wrong interpretation. One person might see waves in the curves. Another might see wings. Someone else might see nothing at all, and yet feel something deep stir inside. And that, in itself, is the point. Unlike realistic sculpture, which imitates something familiar, abstract carved wood plays with the unfamiliar. It embraces mystery. It celebrates the unknown. And in a world that often demands instant answers and fast interpretations, that alone is a quiet act of defiance. Abstract wooden art asks you to slow down, to be still, to engage not with your logic but with your senses, your memories, your intuition. Run your fingers, if you're allowed, along the grain. Feel the difference between smooth planes and jagged cuts. Notice the way light moves across the surface, how it changes with the time of day, how shadows stretch and shift, adding new meaning each hour. And listen. Listen not just with your ears but with your attention. There is rhythm in carved wood, echoes of the tools that shaped it, whispers of the tree it once was, traces of the hands that transformed it from raw material into art. Think about that for a moment. A tree that stood in a forest, catching sunlight, soaking in rain, growing through storms and seasons, now reborn as something else entirely. No longer just wood but a story, a feeling. A sculpture that carries within it the history of nature and the creativity of the human spirit. Abstract wood carving reminds us that meaning doesn't always need definition. That beauty doesn't have to be understood to be felt. It tells us that transformation is possible, that something rough and unformed can become elegant and refined through patience, vision, and care. It teaches us that in the simplest of materials, there can exist the most profound complexity. And perhaps most powerfully, abstract carved wood reflects the viewer just as much as it reflects the artist. What you see in it might change from one day to the next. It might speak differently to you depending on your mood, your memories, your mindset. That's not a flaw, it's a feature. It means the art is alive. Not in the biological sense, but in the emotional, spiritual, and intellectual sense. It evolves with you. So next time you pass by a piece of abstract carved wood art, don't just admire it from afar. Don't rush past it like it's just another decoration. Give it the gift of your time. Let it challenge your assumptions. Let it guide you into quiet reflection. Trace the lines. Ask questions. Not of the piece but of yourself. What does this make me feel? What does it remind me of? What part of me is responding to this and why? And perhaps as you engage with it, you'll start to see the deeper truth, that abstract wooden art is not about answers. It's about exploration. It's about honoring the unknown. It's about allowing space for wonder, ambiguity, and grace. In a world so full of noise and distraction, a piece of carved abstract wood can offer something radical: silence, stillness, a moment of pure presence. And in that moment, something beautiful happens, not just around you but within you.